everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maggie. Happy New Year. With the new year are a lot of closing of old, initiatives, projects, and starting of new ones. And that is what we're doing today with my rotating pan those palettes. That is the eyeshadow focused project I did in 2023. We're going to wrap that up and start 2024's eyeshadow project. And I'm going to be doing a pan that palette again, kind of the old school way. I'm really excited for that. And then I'll be talking through how I'll be incorporating other palettes as companion palettes throughout the year. So let's go ahead and start with the 2023 recap. So if you recall, I was working on 3 different palettes the last kind of part of the year. So I have 2 pre-made palettes and 1 little Z palette of mostly ColourPop singles that I put together. So I'm going to give you the quick update. I'm going to start with the Canyon palette. So this is the Alter Ego Canyon palette. I never hit pan in any of the shades. So this is what it looks like. It is a beautiful, warm, golden palette. It's supposed to be the dupe for the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. I really enjoyed this palette, especially in the fall. I think I talked about that a little bit last time, this is definitely a fall palette for me. As the season got a little bit cooler and a little bit grayer outside and snowy and things like that, I didn't really reach for this as often. So I only have a couple more uses in here from the last update, but I am happy that I, had this in as my focus palette. So I didn't hit any pans on this. I'm still going to keep the palette and all that. But really no visual progress to share. So that is the Canyon palette. Next, I have the Natasha Denona Glam palette. So this is one of my favorite palettes, especially for wintertime. I'm just really drawn towards the shades. I say this every time, but I did in fact rearrange. So it's all the same shades that you would get in the Natasha Denona Glam palette. I just rearranged it. So it's not like a Franken palette or anything. I brought this on vacation with me. If you aren't aware, did post a vlog if you want to check it out a little bit. My fiance and I went to Grand Cayman for Christmas. It was beautiful, and I really didn't wear much makeup until the evenings when we would go out for dinner. And I loved this palette because I could take any of these shimmers, and I just find that these are best with using my finger to apply. So I'd pick any of these, kind of put it on the lid, a little bit of a crease, and be out the door. It was so fantastic and so beautiful to wear. Like, I really like this one. Of course, there's a big dip in it, but I love this rose one. I used this really kind of deeper, brighter gold one night. So really enjoyed this palette. I still do not have any pans in here, but that's okay with me. I know that I'm getting use out of it, and I've used every shade in here at least once. Oh, I should have mentioned that I did in fact use every shade in the Canyon palette at least once as well. That was kind of a goal of mine when I brought palettes in, is to make sure I'm using every shade. So I did in fact reach that. Snapped my hair in there. For both of these palettes, they are fantastic. I will keep them in my collection. I'm really glad I got to use them, but I'm ready to kind of rotate things around. So those are the 2 pre-made. And then we have the ColourPop singles. So we do have an update in here. We had a casualty. So this shade here is no more, unfortunately. So this pan is the ColourPop Wild Nothing Crystal Cove. I was using it to set my primer down, just kind of as that first kind of cream matte shade. We had a little bit of casualty in Grand Cayman. So what I did is I pulled this shade out. I put it in a little, I have an Ulta, I should have grabbed it, the Ulta Single Compact, because I bought it, Ulta Single Shadow, years ago, used it up and kept the compact because it's a magnetic little thing, and it's great for just putting a single shadow in. Flew down to Grand Cayman, opened up my makeup bag, and the single was shattered, which made me pretty sad. I did already have pan on it in the past, so I had used a good amount of it up. I was going to, finish it all the way, but I didn't have that opportunity. And once I opened it, the dust was everywhere. Like, I wasn't going to repress it. It wasn't worth it. So we did have a casualty of that, but otherwise, this is where I'm at in here. So I was really hoping to see pan in Idle Hour here. I have not quite hit pan, but I think it's very, very close. So I may end up putting this like in my project pan or something like that to, finally hit pan. I've been using it as an inner corner highlight for my eyes, and I really, really enjoy it that way. It's kind of got a goldenness to it, but it's not too deep of a gold, if that makes sense. Otherwise in here, I've used every shade. I love these ColourPop shades. If you missed it during Vlogmas, I went through and I downsized and decluttered half of my ColourPop shades. So definitely go check that out if you enjoy, playing with eyeshadows and things like that. I did downsize so that I would have just the shades that I enjoy. Some of them, the formula had kind of changed too, and they weren't as creamy or as nice as they once were. So it was a good effort to go through and, just pick out my favorites. I just thought that that one would have lasted me longer. So, oh well. But with that, I also did earlier in Vlogmas in the month of December, I did a beauty declutter and I did get rid of a couple of palettes. So let's talk about that a little bit. My pan percentage stuff has been, kind of updated with those changes. So I decluttered a couple of palettes, and then I also went through and picked out some of the eyeshadows from the ColourPop palettes to keep and get rid of and all that good stuff. So this is the grid that we have been working with. This is in my planner. I just drew it out. I really like this. So quick glance, I can see where I have pan, and I don't know. I'm a person that likes things like this. So I have recreated that in my new planner for the new year. So it looks drastically different because I have fewer palettes and all of that. So now I have 5 pre-made palettes. I have my ColourPop Z palette that has, well, now 23 shades because the one is no more. And then I have a single shadow from ColourPop, one of the Super Shock ones that I included at the bottom because I could hit pan on it, So anyway, yeah, my palette collection is down significantly, but if we go kind of through all of that, I now have 80 eyeshadows that I could hit pan on, and I have pan in 13 of them. So 13 out of 80 is 16.25%, which I'm really, really pleased with. Going through that decluttering effort was well worth it, and I'm feeling really kind of energized with the palettes that I do have left in my collection, and I'm excited to use all of them this year. So with that being said, let me talk through what my plans are for 2024. So I want to do a Pan That Palette again. I have done Pan That Palette a few times throughout my tenure on YouTube, which I was thinking about it the other day. I started doing YouTube when I was in college, and I'm 29 now. I'm getting married, and it's crazy how much has changed over the years. But my love for makeup has not changed. Well, it's changed a little, but I still love it. Anyway, I'm going to be panning the Soft Glam 2 palette. So this is one of my favorite travel palettes. It is absolutely fantastic, I think, for traveling because of the size. It has a nice mirror in here, but also the shade selection I'm super pleased with. So this is what the palette looks like. This shade, I'm going to talk through each of them, is Tempera, and this is kind of like a satin shade, so it's got a little bit of a sheen to it, but it's not sparkly, so I can use this as a inner corner highlight. I also can use this to set down my primer, and it's not too sparkly or anything like that, so this is a great eyeshadow to have in here. Next is Dreamer, and this is a lighter kind of gold. It's that perfect champagne gold. It makes me think of the first palette I ever panned was the Lorac Pro palette. It makes me think of light bronze in that palette. It's just that beautiful kind of light champagne gold that looks good with everything. Then we have 2 mattes down here. This one is Orange Soda, and then this one is Dusty Rose, both of which are fantastic for the crease and kind of a transition shade. The nice thing about Dreamer is it goes well with both a more kind of rosy crease or a warmer crease. So I really love that about the palette, that this kind of go-to lid shade can work with either way of the crease, going kind of warmer or more kind of purpley. And then the bottom row, we have Incense. This is a nice kind of matte brown, a medium brown, also great for the crease. Then we have Sultry. So this is a shimmery shade. It's kind of got a purpley brown color to it. I typically use shades like this on the outer third of my lid just to give a little bit of depth there, but not always wanting something really deep. And then we have 2 more mattes over here. This one is Mulberry, which I think is such a beautiful shade. I really have enjoyed this very lightly blended into the crease and kind of like a little bit deeper in the outer third of the eye look. I also really like it as a liner. I think it's gorgeous. And then we have Noir, which is a black matte that I typically use as a liner. I really don't use matte blacks in any other fashion because I'm so fair and light skinned that I feel like any dark shade just looks so drastic on me. So I have to be extremely light handed with them. So yeah, that is the palette. So I already have Pan in 3 shades. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. So I have Pan in Tempera, Dreamer, and Noir already. And I'm going to try to be better about panning and like take proper photos and all that this year. So I'll start a beginning photo, but my goal in here, I would love to use as much of this palette up as I can. So I do plan to say goodbye to it at the end of 2024, and I want to use as much of it up as I can. So I think that these 2 shades will be super easy to use up. I think I'll probably end up hitting Pan in these pretty quickly. This bottom row will take a little bit more effort, but I think with consistency, I probably can hit Pan in everything at least. I just don't know if I'll be like finishing Noir up all the way, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's gonna be my goal, is to use as much of it as I can in the rest of the year. And I think that that's gonna work out pretty well for me. So this will be my primary palette throughout the year. I'll be doing monthly updates to share with you any progress, any new pans, photos, all that good stuff. And one of the things I really loved doing in 2023 was rotating through my other palettes. I loved knowing that I was using every palette every year. And I loved knowing that I was using every shade in every palette at least once throughout the year. It made it a lot easier for me to do my declutter at the end of the year after I knew that I had used everything and I could remember, didn't really love that, or it was a struggle to use this. So that is something I want to kind of continue on. So this will be my primary palette. And then every 2 months, I'm going to be rotating in a different palette to be the companion. I think it's helpful, especially because this is a smaller palette, to have a companion palette, because I will probably use, you know, the shades in here in a different way depending on what other shades are available to me. And it also just kind of helps keep it a little bit fresh and feel like, oh, I've got something new to play with when I'm still able to use this kind of for the basics. So this will be the primary palette. The first companion palette that I'm going to be bringing in is my Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette. So this is a 5-pan eyeshadow palette that looks like this. I do already have Pan in the 2 end shades, so Galaxia and Pixie have Pan in them. I really love this palette, especially I think with the soft glam. It'll be really, really nice. So these are the 2 palettes kind of side by side. Obviously, this Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette kind of has a pinky vibe to it. So I think that'll really help me use Mulberry and Dusty Rose, because I have, you know, these shades here. And then it also has some really interesting greens, which I think could, you know, pair with incense and even orange soda in a, you know, kind of pretty interesting like multi-dimensional look without it being like, oh, it's just browns together. Like I could bring in a little bit of green and it could be fun. So this is going to be the first pairing. And like I said, I'll take photos. I don't expect as much progress in the companion palettes, of course, because I'll only be using them 2 months, whereas this I'm using all year. But I will still take photos just in case we get any pans or significant progress along the way. So this is going to be the palette pairing, I guess, for January and February. I'm still going to do a monthly update, so you'll see that at the beginning of each month. It might not be the very first video every month, but at the beginning of the month, we'll do an update each month. And then as I hit pan and I go through things, we'll be updating my tracker in my new planner for 2024 with the different pans. So really excited about it. I'm also really looking forward to seeing shades get used up. I kind of missed that in the last year. I mean, I got to use everything and I had a few pans throughout the year, but I really want to see the Soft Glam palette like get finished up. That's gonna be really satisfying. So that is what I'm gonna be doing for 2024. I would love to hear from you in the comment section what your eyeshadow panning plan is, if you only knew how many times it took me to say that right. Let me know what you're doing. Are you doing a pan up palette? Are you doing level up? There's so many different projects out there. Love to hear what you are doing. And yeah, that's all I've got for you today. So I hope you are doing well, and I will see you in our next video. Take care.